Thank you very much. Thank you very much to CK and Neha for this great introduction, and thank you also, Sarah, for your very interesting opening remarks. I actually wanted to build on this. I think the initial video that you showed us about the key drivers, technology, demographics, and power play, I think it's very important. I wanted to focus my presentation more on let's say the societal implications of artificial intelligence, in particular, and the new technologies. And I wanted to show you some work that we are doing here at the International Labour Organization on Tomorrow at Work, the AI Trilemma. So talking a bit about societal implications, and then bringing into the picture as well a small association that I'm running here out of Geneva called Geneva Microlabs that actually tries to build on these insights and trying to kind of looking into sustainability issues that are related to artificial intelligence in particular. So one thing I think I'd add to the previous speaker is exactly that, is the sustainability issue that is missing from the discussion. I think I would like to bring this into this discussion today. So let me give you some take-home messages on this. First of all, sustainability is really an issue that is at the heart of these current new technologies on artificial intelligence in particular. And what I mean with that is that you actually have an issue here that you cannot solve the inequality that comes with it, increase the productivity, and still have ecological sustainability at the same time. This is what I call the AI trilemma. These are three items that you cannot have simultaneously. Unfortunately, I have to say that in many advanced economies, at least, technological progress has actually delivered neither. We see rising inequality. I mean, and that was pre-COVID. I have some charts to back that up. We see low productivity growth. Productivity has not increased over the last 15, 20 years, despite the fact that we see this uprise in artificial intelligence, and we still have a high ecological footprint. So we actually have, on this trilemma, we actually have the worst situation possible. My argument here is, and I think that's where policy and sustainability connect, is there is a way out, which means that we need to focus on directed technological progress. We need to see where are the areas where we can put in artificial intelligence into use, into smart use that help us solve this trilemma and have a proper public management of the data economy, but also private actors in that process. So basically, a proper public-private management of the entire digital economy. So let me just go maybe very quickly into the issue of what this trilemma involves. Is what we see is, and we have discussed this you're certainly aware of this discussion in certain other forums, is that first of all, we see a lot of inequality happening across the world now. We have political consequences that came out of this, and there's still not really an ideal solution in terms of policies that help us. Plus, often these policies would run against any increase in productivity. Productivity does happen, but it doesn't diffuse. It happens in a very small part of the economy, mostly around online companies like Amazon, etc., or Google. They are highly productive, highly profitable companies, but it doesn't diffuse to the rest of the economy. You see an increasing disconnect between the front runners of the economy and the rest of the crowd. And on top of that, you have a high energy impact and high environmental impact of these new technologies. So currently, we're talking about 6-7% of electricity to consumption in the United States is going through electronic devices. The anticipation, the forecast for this energy impact will be about 20-25% by 2030, 2035. So that's an enormous impact that we have, and we don't necessarily have the means to solve that, simply because there are technological limits to what we can achieve, unless we switch to a totally new technology, of which we see some contours around quantum computing, but it's certainly not something that we will have in our pockets anytime soon. So we have an issue that we, on the one hand, we have this issue between productivity and inequality, but on top of that, we also see an ecological sustainability problem that we haven't really managed to solve. And the question is, what can we do about this? So let me first give you some statistics, maybe just to back up some of my earlier points. First, this is here long-term productivity developments for G7 countries. G7 countries is United States, United Kingdom, Japan, Canada, Germany, France, and Italy. And you see that no matter which country you look at, you have a continuous decline in average annual hourly productivity growth over the last 60, 70 years. And that hasn't stopped. On the contrary, I mean, this is obviously everything is pre-COVID, but by 2019, we still saw extremely low productivity growth, including in countries that are front runner in the digital economy, which are the United States and the United Kingdom. And so we haven't really seen much. There was in the 90s, there was a period where we saw a bit of an acceleration of productivity growth. But after that, the growth rate fell again. And despite the fact that artificial intelligence in particular has accelerated so massively over the last 10 years, we don't see much of that effect. You might say yet, but my point is that actually there is an issue behind the digital economy that prevents these effects from diffusing more broadly throughout the rest of the economy. Yeah? The other aspect that I mentioned before is very interesting here. If you look at this chart, so this stops a bit already in the mid 2010s, is you see that massive decline in computer storage costs. This is just a reflection overall of how more efficient our computer technologies have become over the last 40 years or so. And what's interesting is at the same time, at least for OECD countries, you also see a decline in job destruction. So you don't see an increase. It's not that these technologies, these new computer technologies, would lead to more and more job destruction on the labor market. On the contrary, it seems to be associated with a decline. What did happen on the other hand, was an increase in inequality. An increase in inequality, again, the chart stops a bit before, even before the uptake of artificial intelligence. So there was a massive and continuous increase in inequality, where some people managed to actually get access to these benefits of these new technologies, whereas the rest of the crowd basically did not benefit from it so much or at all. And again, the question is, what can we do about this, and what needs to be done to address this? So let me just conceptualize a bit of what the problem here is, and I think that gives us some ideas of what needs to be done, both on the policy side, but also on the side of where companies can actually make a difference here. So most of the discussion right now is really focusing on how artificial intelligence replaces workers. So we're talking, most of the time we're talking about job loss. My point on this previous chart was we don't see much of this job loss happening, and partly for reasons that Sarah was mentioning, that a lot of job losses might happening, but at the same time we also see a lot of job creation happening somewhere else. What is interesting is artificial intelligence can help make workers more productive, and I think again Sarah's presentation was really to the point, saying where are these possibilities for making workers more productive. It makes organizational changes, but it also needs some kind of the right qualification, the right skills to help this. My point is to solve the AI trilemma with which I started my presentation is, but we need to enhance the system efficiency. We need to enhance the way people, companies, and governments work together in a way that helps us to improve both the overall productivity of the economy, but also the ecological sustainability. One simple example of that would, for instance, improve our transportation systems. I don't know you in Singapore, but here in Geneva, even though it's a small city, we lose a lot of time to inefficient transportation system. I'm actually was much happier than while I was in confinement at home, because I didn't have to lose so much time on commuting. Other issues are waste management, electricity management, even more closely related to labor markets. The way we hire, companies have started thinking about solutions how to improve their hiring process, to actually lose less money, leave less money on the table by identifying, before you actually start the whole hiring process, identifying the right skill competences, the right skills, and the right workers that will match with these skills, both inside your company but also externally. And I think these kind of system applications of artificial intelligence is where exactly we should focus in our way forward. Now, to give you an example of the first element that is now affecting more broadly the labor market, and that actually might prevent us from looking on this part, is that AI obviously had, in addition, so start differently. The automation problem that we have seen in the past was mostly linked to middle skilled and low skilled employees that use their physical power to shift goods, etc. So you had all these automated processes that help to replace workers use physical physical capacity. Now with AI, we see that increasingly the patents are focusing on cognitive abilities to be replaced by AI. And you see here, this is work that was done by a PhD student from Stanford. He kind of went through the different patent application in the U.S. Patent Office and looked at what are the activities that are being replaced by current patents. And you see all of these activities in the left column are activities that are typically carried out by white-collar workers, which is when you translate this into job losses or job risk by education level here on the figure on the bottom, you see that mostly this would target people with bachelor's degree or graduate and professional degree. So people like you and me, basically, that would be highly targeted by these new technologies that are coming. So the question is actually, is there something else we can do with it, or is that really kind of accelerating the process that we don't only see inequality, but increasingly also job losses? And my argument to that is, and I would differ a bit from what Sarah was saying before about the gig economy. My biggest fear of these developments is that what we do actually see is the increasing share of bullshit jobs on the labor market. Bullshit jobs is that David Graeber defined it some years ago as jobs that meaningless for people who are carrying out, actually people don't know themselves why they are doing these jobs. So a typical example is compliance officers. So compliance officer are basically people that make sure that some rules and procedures are being followed through. It's basically an answer to red tape, if you want. And so you see here an example for the United States, a health insurance administrative cost. They don't add anything to the healthcare system as such. They just make sure that the red tape has been carried through properly. Whereas on the gig side, we actually don't see much of an uptake. Now this might change. You say the latest number on this chart up there is from 2017. But the problem with the gig work is often that these are very specific tasks that are carried out, for instance, in terms of home delivery or taxi services. But if you look at the attempt to apply gig work to consultancy services, is much less effective and much less. It requires a much stronger collaboration between consultant and consultee. So we can actually implement this type of approaches to a larger share of the workforce. So then the question is, so what should we do? So obviously one of the answers that is typically given is skills. We need more skills. But clearly, we need more cognitive skills, or at least to the extent that we need to outpace, basically, if you want, the improvement in terms of these artificial intelligence routines to be smarter than these machines and to have also always a competitive edge. In addition to that, and I think that was something that also came very clearly out of the current crisis, is we need social and emotional skills, and these are not skills that you typically learn in a university or a classroom or in high school. This is something that you sometimes you have it, you bring it naturally with you, but sometimes you need actually coaching and very different approaches to learning in this environment. But these are certainly skills that will become much more important alongside technological skills. And if you look at this chart, the increase is certainly higher for technological skills, but the number of hours worked in this area is still much lower than the number of hours worked that require social and emotional skills, and that will certainly remain for the time being. One specific area which I always focus on in this presentation is you have a specific systemic issue to inequality for the data economy. And I think that it's important to bring this to the table and to identify to what extent actually not only public sector regulation but also private sector can offer solutions to this issue. And I think that there are possibilities. Data portability is obviously a regulatory issue, but there are open innovation systems. Just this morning, I talked with a person from Open Geneva who has this kind of open innovation system here in Geneva. These are systems where basically intellectual property is much more easily shared across different entities, which help to spread the ideas, the spread, the knowledge that is generated by these innovations across a larger part of the economy, and helps basically to address the inequality issue, as I mentioned before. Then there are much more innovative approaches like data as labor, where you would use blockchain technologies, for instance, to identify who is actually providing the data in order to benefit from it individually. But these are clearly things where private-public collaboration is important. And then my last point is, what all this requires at the end is we need to support at the systemic level, at the aggregate level. We need to support occupational transition. What Sarah also mentioned, and I perfectly agree with this, is we can't kind of continue the way we are doing. But this requires support. This requires administrative capacity, and requires obviously also funding from the point from those who have put these systems together. And there will be changes that are necessary, for instance, in terms of the way we tax our economy. So digital taxation is one high topic right now at the European Union, at least. We also need, and that comes back to the gig economy, we need new forms of social security that help provide social security for the Uber driver and for the home delivery service that maybe not be benefiting from the typical social security system that we have seen in the past. There are other ways of also profit sharing at the company level, but what's important is that the sharing of the wealth that is created by the digital economy needs to go through a different scheme, in my sense, which requires somehow setting up using these digital wealth at the national level through what I call this digital sovereign wealth fund that can help to leverage at the national level the economy and provide benefits more broadly throughout the economy. And then the last point, I think that is something which becomes now obvious almost to say this in the current situation, is the strength and resilience. We need to find ways of helping people, having a broader skill set, having maybe a stronger support to find ways of identifying new avenues for themselves, for their career path, in order to strengthen resilience in the face of shocks that we have are currently seeing. And with that, I leave you with that last chart by Dilbert, which I always find interesting to finish with, which is basically, at some point we have to ask ourselves, is the jobs that we are creating actually, are these the jobs that we really want to have? Or should we not focus also our effort to those jobs that are really creating meaning and value? And I think that especially in this collaboration and this collaborative space between private-public sector interaction to help identify sustainability gaps and to address them, I would find that's where I see a lot of meaning being currently created, and where, as I mentioned earlier with Geneva Macro Labs, I think we're trying to find solutions that are concrete and to the point to some of these challenges that we're currently facing. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to your questions.